CNN.
Coming up next on College Football Preview, Florida is no zero, but it would like to keep one in its loss column after facing Florida State. Can the Gators get the job done against a team equal in might and end a string of frustration?
I have had a bitter taste in my mouth for the last 3 or 4 years.
Plus, to some, Steve Spurrier is a hero. To others, a villain.
He's just a guy that is very candid, almost to a blunt way.
We'll have a closer look at the man who puts the bite in the Gators. Plus, Ohio State puts its 11-0 record on the line at Michigan. A rose by any other name would be a thorn in the Buckeyes' season. Northwestern is standing by, and so is its head coach, as College Football Preview clicks on all cylinders. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the show. As always, Bob Lorenz, Danny Sheridan, and Northwestern head coach Gary Barnett will be joining us a little later in the show. And here's the question of the day, Danny. Gary Barnett has a vested interest in this one. Can the unbeaten stay unbeaten?
Well, you know, we'll know in about 4 hours, Bob, and I was just thinking, it's a good question. What happens if Florida and Florida State tie today?
Nobody's thought of that. Great. Now I have to change the entire line of questioning.
It's a very sick thought, but it could happen.
But coming from you, normal. All right, let's get to the answers. Start to get some of the answers to the question by heading down to Gainesville, Florida, where today the 10-0 Florida Gators, ranked 3rd in the coaches poll, play host to number 6 Florida State. Our Darren Kagan is there with a report.
It's kind of a dreary, chilly day here at the Swamp in Gainesville, but it's going to take more than gray skies to dampen the atmosphere around here. Both Florida and Florida State fans got things going early this morning. The Seminoles and Gators are getting pumped up all around Ben Hill Griffin Stadium. There's a lot riding on this game: the state championship, a possible trip to the Fiesta Bowl to go for the national championship, and then there is that intense rivalry. Steve Spurrier is 1-4-1 going up against Florida State. Bobby Bowden 11-8-1 in 20 previous meetings against the Gators. And then Florida is trying to forget last year's game, where Florida State came back from a 31-3 deficit in the 4th quarter to tie the game.
Well, I have had a bitter taste in my mouth for the last 3 or 4 years, so I kind of look forward to this game, and I'm ready to let them, taste the bitterness and get some of the sweet taste.
Look at the big picture. I mean, there's a national championship at hand for both teams, and that's what we're looking at as our main goal. And we always know that if we beat the Florida teams, that we'll be right up there for the national championship. And this is the biggest game of the year for us right here.
When announcers and everybody say Danny Cannell has, done well ever since the Florida game and in Tallahassee, that really bothers me. But thank God we're going to have another opportunity, another shot to show the world what we can do.
Yeah, this is a big one always. It's become bigger the last 15 or 20 years, the Florida State rivalry. And we've never played the game that I can remember where it had this much riding on it, a trip to Phoenix.
Florida's coach Steve Spurrier is hardly the most popular coach in America. Perhaps it has something to do with some of the outspoken things that he says. I had a chance to sit down with Steve Spurrier early this week. I'll have that interview coming up later in the show. For now, Bob and Danny, back to you.
All right, thanks, Darren. Now let's take a look at this matchup from ground level. And the Seminoles have nearly run the table the last 4 years. 3 wins, and of course they had to rally to tie last year. The big difference on the offense has come on the ground, where Florida State has had much more success running the ball. And that brings up this question, Danny. How do the Gators slow down Warwick Dunn?
Well, what they'll do, Bob, they'll assign a defensive back, a linebacker, or a defensive end on Dunn on first down. When Florida rushes 4 men, they'll double Dunn with 2 backers inside and out. The plan, obviously, is to know where Dunn is at all times. He's the most talented player on the field. Florida feels if he gets 150 yards rushing or 60 yards passing, they'll lose the game. The best 2 players in this series, the best 2 players for Florida State, Warwick Dunn and some quarterback named Charlie Ward. Best 2 players. That's quite a compliment to Warwick Dunn.
Yeah, let's look on the flip side, too, of this, talking about quarterbacks. And Danny Werfel is a very hard guy to sack for the Gators. The focus of the offense is on him with that fun and gun. And how tough does that make it on the defense, knowing you can't bring him down?
Well, the first thing is he's got a great first name. We both know that. Product of the system, and you see it, that 5-step drop, and then he throws the ball. You cannot sack him unless you have excellent coverage in the secondaries. He's very accurate, great offensive line. It's nice to have 5 or 6 good receivers and 2 or 3 good running backs.
Well, while we're at it, let's just add another great Danny into the mix. Danny Cannell. Interesting when you break down the numbers and compare he and Werfel. Despite the much-hyped fun-and-gun offense at Florida, Cannell's stats are very similar, and actually, if you look at him, a little better than Werfel's. And what's he going to have to do to have success today?
Well, he's a deeper passer, Bob, than Werfel. He throws more deep routes down the field. He also gets a better view of the field when they go into their shotgun, no-huddle offense. And again, it helps that you got Warwick Dunn, Rock Preston. He's got 3 solid receivers. These quarterbacks really have just a well-coached team and just superb athletes, probably the best in the country.
Okay, we're going to give you a little extra time to mull over and get your pick on this game a little later. The winner will likely face #1 Nebraska for the national championship in the Fiesta Bowl on January 2nd. The Huskers locked up their spot by racking up their 3rd straight undefeated regular season yesterday against Oklahoma. Tommy Heisman, he gets 2 votes taken away because they spelled his name wrong, and that hurts. First quarter, Nebraska already up, 2nd and 23, and the redshirt freshman Eric Moore picked off by Jamal Williams, who takes it back for the touch. 2 defensive touchdowns on the day for the Huskers. Quickly was 10-0. Later, Tommy Frazier, last chance to impress the Heisman voters, just 12 of 25, 128 yards passing, but he hooks up with John Vidral there for a 38-yard strike as the Huskers win it 37-0. Well, still to come, a look at another unbeaten team. 2nd-ranked Ohio State hoping to finish off its schedule today as it invades Michigan Stadium with a perfect season and a Rose Bowl bid on the line. And should the Buckeyes falter, Northwestern is ready to go. And so is its head coach, Gary Barnett. He's our special guest on the show right after this.
Oh, well, I'm the kind of light that likes to bend around. You can point me left or right or hang me upside down. But I'm not the kind of light you have to hang on to. Just use me when you need 3 hands, but you've got only 2. 'Cause I'm the snake light. They call me the snake light.
It's the totally flexible hands-free flashlight from Black & Decker.
Yeah, we're the snake lights from Black & Decker. We get around, 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 around.
5 years ago, did you imagine you'd be doing this one day?
How could I? It took you 3 weeks to call me back.
It was a test. We'd like to get married.
How did I do?
Hustling and bustling for this season's best values can be a breeze if you shop with this, the Big Payback Value Book, and this, your Discover Card. You can get over $170 in cash rebates on top name brand gifts for the holidays. Just send us your receipts, and you can wrap up big savings without all the runaround. It pays to Discover, the card with the big payback. Use it where you see the Novus sign.
Nobody else has it. Only Headline News has the sports sticker. Continuously updated scores from college to the pros, even while the games are in progress. Headline News sports sticker. This fall, you'll always know the score.
We go back to 1987, the Buckeyes against the Wolverines at Michigan Stadium. Earl Bruce already told he wouldn't be back, and he went out a winner. Now, that was the last time that Ohio State was able to beat Michigan in Ann Arbor. And the Buckeyes hope that that will change today. In fact, it will have to if Ohio State wants to go to the Rose Bowl. A loss or tie at Michigan Stadium just won't be good enough. 2 years ago, the Buckeyes had an unbeaten season and a Rose Bowl trip spoiled by the Wolverines in Ann Arbor. But despite that memory, Ohio State won't change its attack plan.
Obviously, everybody realizes this is for the Rose Bowl. This is for our undefeated season, and it means a lot. But I think for the most part, everybody's just going to try to go about our business like we have all year.
A victory in this game gives us a season that we can be very proud of.
I remember 3 years ago, you know, they lost 4 ball games, and came out and just destroyed us. And we had the better record at that time, so you know we just had to go out there and just play our game.
Well, Buckeye star wide receiver Terry Glenn said this week, "I'll guarantee we're going to the Rose Bowl," which in effect is a guarantee of a win over Michigan. Little fuel to the fire there, Danny. Glenn, part of that 3-headed monster that will try to tear the place down in Ann Arbor. He, quarterback Bobby Hoying, and running back Eddie George account for 72% of the Buckeyes' offense and 67 of their 89 touchdowns. And which of the 3 is going to be the key today, Danny?
Neither. The real key is their great offensive line. It opens gaping holes for Eddie George. They also afford Hoying unbelievable protection, Bob. This is the best offensive line in college football, and I don't say that I could get 1,000 yards behind it, but I could make a dent.
Oh, you could get 900, probably. At least. All right, might not get to 4 digits. Anyway, Eddie George has more than 1,700 yards rushing. Is this guy your pick for the Heisman?
No, it's not. The only guy to pick is Troy Davis. Davis has gotten over 2,000 yards this year. 4 other backs have done that in history. They all 4 won the Heisman Trophy. Let me tell you about the support that Davis gets. His quarterback hands him the ball and says, "Have a nice day, Troy. Good luck to you." This is a 3-8 team. If he played behind Ohio State's line, and this is not to knock Eddie George, this guy could possibly get 3,000 yards. Everybody knows he's going to get it, and he got 2,000 yards. Troy Davis, that's who ought to win the Heisman in a perfect world.
All right, it's not a perfect world as we know. We don't have a playoff system. Another evidence of that. George, by the way, has a string of 10 straight 100-yard games. Michigan running back Tim Biakavatuka has 7 of those for the season, and he's really the focus of the Michigan offense now, isn't he?
Well, the key thing about him is that, remember, unlike Eddie George, he doesn't have a young quarterback. He's got to have a big game. He's got to have 100 yards rushing today. He's got to take the pressure off Greasy. Michigan's game plan, they're real simple. They want Greasy to pass on non-passing downs. They want to stay out of 3rd and long situations. I think Michigan can run on Ohio State, Bob, and I feel they have good matchups with their receivers and Ohio State's cornerbacks. I'm a little concerned about Greasy. I wish Dreisbach was in there, but I'm going to take Michigan at 8.5, and they do have a decent chance in this game.
All right. As we already mentioned, if Ohio State loses or ties, then Northwestern gets the Rose Bowl bid, which would be the first of any kind for Northwestern since 1949. And we're pleased to welcome Wildcats head coach Gary Barnett to the show. Coach, thanks for being with us.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I guess you're on campus today watching the game, and you've got a few folks with you. Is that right?
We'll have a number of our players that stayed over for Thanksgiving, and then well-wishers, and then probably more media than we do players.
I would assume this is the only time you'll be rooting for Michigan.
I actually have a Michigan flag that's flying in our team room, the only time it'll ever fly there.
Is it tough for you to just sit there and wait for the outcome of today's game? I mean, would you rather play Ohio State? It didn't work out as far as the schedule goes this year, but would you rather play the Buckeyes and take destiny into your own hands?
Well, I think in a perfect world, yes, but I know I supported the 8-game program that we have now, the schedule, and so there isn't much I can say about that. I think it's highly unlikely that anybody's going to finish undefeated in the Big Ten, and then to have 2 teams finish possibly undefeated that don't play each other, what are the chances of that happening? So in a perfect world, I like to play Ohio State, but we'll just have to sit back and see how this game unfolds.
Well, your motto for the season, Coach, has been expect victory, but did you even expect this much? Your first 10-win season, you ran the table in the Big Ten, especially all this after going 3-7-1 last season.
Well, I don't think anybody expects to go undefeated in the Big Ten, so no on that one. We expected to have a chance to have a significant season. We thought going into the Purdue game that was going to be a big game for us and might determine our 6th win, but I think after we beat Michigan in Ann Arbor, that we had even a new level of confidence than we had going into the season initially, and so I think that enabled us to push through this conference the way we did.
Do you feel your team is good enough to beat any team in the nation?
Boy, I don't know. I think we have played well enough in a number of games. We played well enough at Penn State to beat just about anybody. To consistently do that, I don't know. We've got a good team. And that's what we are. We're a team. We really play well together, and I think any time that you can play as a team and you play at the level that we did in a couple of games, then you can beat just about anybody.
Let me get your take on the alliance against a playoff system. Being part of the Big Ten, if you go to the Rose Bowl, it's not part of the alliance. But on the flip side, if Ohio State goes, you stand to be shut out of the most lucrative bowls despite being ranked 4th. Is that frustrating to you? Would you rather see a playoff system?
Well, I would not want to see a playoff system. I want to do whatever we can do to keep the bowl system intact. I think we have something that no other sport does. It enables programs like ours to get on a national scene and to make a turnaround in their program. If they want to take a game after all the bowls and play the winners of the 2 big bowls or whatever they determine as the 2 major bowls, I can handle that, but I'm not in favor of a playoff system. I don't think college football is a basketball setup. I don't like that.
Let me get your take on it. Let me get a jump on everybody else, Coach. Your name is obviously going to be mentioned as one of the hot commodities after the season. Let's talk a little bit about your future. Your name has already been linked in these parts to the vacancy at Georgia. Has there been any contact, and do you know what you want to do?
No, there hasn't been any contact, and what I want to do is make sure that my family is happy And I know right now in Northwestern and Chicago area, they've been extremely happy and they love the area. But the most important thing to me is what I can control. Right now, I can't control any of those things. All I can do at this point is keep my family happy and safe.
And unfortunately, Coach, you can't control the Heisman votes, but I know we've talked about Tommy Frazier and Eddie George in this show. You have Darnell Autry, another outstanding back. Give us a quick sales pitch on him.
Well, Darnell's an outstanding football player, and he plays with a group of guys who play at a higher level because he's in the game. I don't know what the Heisman really means. If it means the best football player in a given situation. I heard your discussion on Eddie George earlier and Davis, and you're right, Davis plays in a much more difficult situation than Eddie George plays in, but I guess that's for everybody else to determine, but Darnell Autry is one heck of a football player.
Well, Coach, congratulations on a terrific season. Thanks for being with us, and I guess you can start waving that Michigan banner right now.
I will. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Coming up next on the show, we stick with the coaching biz and head back to Gainesville, where we find that sometimes the only way to get a Gator's attention is through tough love.
And I get mad at myself a little bit for yelling at Danny threw a bad pass the other day, and I yelled at him a little bit, and then, you know, later I tell him I'm sorry, pat him on the back and said, let's go.
Office Depot helps us where it counts, on the bottom line.
We shopped other stores, but Office Depot had more brands, bigger inventory, and guaranteed low prices.
Taking care of business every day. Taking care of business every way. I've been taking care of business.
You can't beat the savings, and you certainly can't beat the service.
There's no reason to go anywhere else.
It's as simple as that.
Nobody sells more office supplies for less than Office Depot.
It's America's #1 movie with a bullet. Critics are calling GoldenEye one of the best action-adventure movies of the 90s.
Wait till you're still a kid.
No. GoldenEye, rated PG-13, now playing.
MGM presents the most critically acclaimed comedy of the year. Time magazine says it's hilarious.
That's funny.
And Siskel and Ebert give it 2 thumbs up.
Really? Huh?
Get Shorty, rated R, now playing at theaters everywhere.
We've painted the morning sun in Santa Barbara that burns away those blue-gray mists that cool the coastal vines and brighten all the colors in the grapes that go to make a brighter shade of Chardonnay. Meridian Chardonnay, raised in California sunlight, aged in French oak. This is the art of Meridian. The bright, rich flavors in every glass of Meridian Chardonnay.
Unlike any other major discount brokerage firm, Oldie has its own staff of research analysts who research hundreds of companies and recommend those they believe have the best potential. Here's the best part. Oldie lets you purchase 1,000 shares or more of any of these recommended stocks commission-free. It's called smart trading, and everyone qualifies. No other brokerage firm guarantees a more competitive service. For commissionless trading and a list of recommended stocks, call 1-800-USA-OLDIE.
Sunday.
It's straight out and out terrorism and murder.
Arson, drug gangs' new weapon of fear. Is it our next urban nightmare? Law and disorder. Next on the weekly series, CNN Presents. Sunday, 9 Eastern.
Well, any coach in a big-time program feels the pressure of having to win, and today's Florida State matchup puts a white-hot spotlight on that fact. The job comes with intense scrutiny and intense criticism. Darren Kagan rejoins us now with a closer look at Steve Spurrier, who's seen as a hero by some and a villain by others.
Since we are in Gator country, you won't have any trouble finding any Steve Spurrier fans around here. But get out of Gainesville and that could be a different story. Perhaps it has something to do with the way that Steve Spurrier simply speaks his mind. Like last year when he said that FSU stood for Free Shoes University. That was after some Florida State players received some free shoes from a local athletic store. That's Steve Spurrier for you, a coach that doesn't know how to do anything halfway.
The sight of Coach Steve Spurrier and his Florida visor on the sidelines is enough to make some opponents as angry as a hungry alligator. Maybe it has to do with his attitude.
I've heard people say that, you know, there's a fine line between calling a guy arrogant and cocky or calling him very confident. And sometimes when you're bluntly honest, maybe they don't think you're supposed to be that way.
Or maybe they don't think you're supposed to play your team full force for 60 minutes. Critics accuse Spurrier of running up the score, but he makes no excuses.
Somebody asked me something about running up the score or something. I said, I've never had one Gator say that we scored too much in the fourth quarter. And I really sort of work for the Gators, and I guess it's hard to make everybody happy. So I try to make the Gators happy the best I can.
To make Gator fans happy, Spurrier leans on his players.
I always say I'd rather play for a coach that demands perfection than one that accepts mediocrity, and definitely he just wants to be the best, wants the quarterbacks and the offense to just run up and down the field.
He's a competitor and he wants to win. That's the bottom line. And he wants the best from his players. You know, like yesterday he said he yells at everybody, and this is true. He yells at everybody, right or wrong or indifferent.
There's little wrong with Spurrier's winning record. In his first 5 years, he's led Florida to 4 conference titles, 3 officially, and finished as runner-up the other year. The numbers speak for themselves. It's just the way that Spurrier speaks his mind.
I think Steve Spurrier, if you ask him a question, he assumes you want the answer. And he does not, I don't think, always care to give you the patented football coach's answer. I don't really, think it has a degree of whether he's a good man or bad man. He's just a guy that is very candid, almost to a blunt way.
You're not offended by some of the things that he says?
Do I get offended? No, I haven't yet, to be honest with you. Just like the Free Shoes University thing. That was funny to me. I'm a humorist. I love humor. And he showed me a little sense of humor. I've nailed him, too, but he don't know about it. So I don't announce mine to the paper.
Despite the controversial things that Steve Spurrier might say, it's hard to argue with his incredibly successful record. In fact, it's that kind of success that tends to bring interest from the NFL. But Spurrier says he's not looking for a ticket to the pros.
I don't think I would be smart to want to leave this job. This is one of the best coaching jobs in America. To be able to live in Florida year-round, golf courses, the beaches down here are beautiful. Live in Gainesville, Florida, voted #1 city in the country. It's hard to beat this place.
Steve Spurrier and I also talked about whether his lack of popularity affected where his school stood in the polls. He told me he didn't think so. Rather, that the hardest thing a school fought against was where they started the season in the polls and had to fight an uphill battle from there. That's it from Gainesville. I'm Darren Kagan. Back to you, Bob and Danny, in the studio.
I don't think Steve's looking for any popularity points. He just wants to win, that's for sure. Danny, let's turn our attention to a pair of teams who want to align themselves with the Alliance, if they can. That's Syracuse and Miami, both 5-1 in the Big East. They can clinch a share of the conference title with Virginia Tech by winning. And happy birthday to Syracuse freshman quarterback Donovan McNabb. Hard to believe, Danny, this guy's just 19 years old the way he's played. More than 1,800 yards passing so far.
Bob, the Syracuse coach's game plan was real simple. They wanted to play McNabb and let him learn from his mistakes. And he shocked him by basically playing the entire year error-free. Imagine only 3 interceptions all year. Excellent passer. He's an elusive runner. And I think the combination of freshman McNabb, their freshman running back Rob Conrad, coupled with Marvin Harrison, he's one of the best receivers in the country, very dangerous punt returner. I think they're more than capable of matching Miami point for point. This is an $8 million game for Miami before they get hammered by the NCAA. And I like Syracuse in the points. I really think they're just as good as Miami, maybe a little bit better.
Okay, and you want to stick around because we're not done exercising Danny's mind yet. And it needs a workout from time to time.
And it does.
His Florida State pick is straight ahead right after this timeout.
Time now for our Athlete of the Week. Purdue's Mike Alstott closed out his college career in stellar fashion Friday. The senior fullback piled up 264 yards on the ground. He set a new Boilermaker single-season rushing record with 1,436 yards. Alstott scored 3 touchdowns in Purdue's 51-14 win over Indiana.
Athlete of the Week, brought to you by Discover, the Discover card. It pays to discover, the card that pays you back.
Hustling and bustling for this season's best values can be a breeze if you shop with this, the Big Payback Value Book, and this, your Discover card. You can get over $170 in cash rebates on top name brand gifts for the holidays. Just send us your receipts, and you can wrap up big savings without all the runaround. It pays to discover the card with the big payback. Look in the mail for your value book today.
You can depend on us when you need to be restarted. But AAA is also there when you want to be cruised, waterfalled, glaciered, wined, dined, and completely spoiled by a Holland America West Tours Alaska vacation. Because AAA members get free tour options. For details on our members-only offer on Holland America West Tours Alaska vacations or AAA membership, call 1-800-374-1106.
Travel with someone you trust.
AAA.
Make the right call every Sunday morning with NFL Preview, hosted by Vince Cellini and analyst James Lofton and Ron Meyer. For a full hour of coverage 1 hour earlier than the other guys, turn to NFL Preview, Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern on CNN.
Welcome back. Last time at this point in the show, we talked about some coaching moves, maybe as many as 5 changes in the Big Ten to shake up in Alabama. This week, you think the winds of change might be blowing through Westwood?
Yeah, I'll be surprised, Bob, if Terry Donahue comes back for his 21st year. In 20 years at UCLA, he holds the record for the most Pac-10 wins against Pac-10 schools at 98. He's got the winning record. He's got a winning record against every Pac-10 school. He's turned down 2 NFL jobs, Atlanta and the Rams last year. He's done it all in 20 years. I can't imagine him coming back next year. Anything's possible.
Okay, we've got to get your Florida State pick in. Last 2 meetings, the regular season and Sugar Bowl last year, you went with the underdog each time. Do you go with the underdog again?
I hope I can stay lucky. It's real simple what Florida's going to do. They have to stop Dunn and force Canal to beat him. Florida State, on the other hand, they're going to try to control the ball with short passes in their running game and concentrate on their running game with Dunn and Preston. I like the points in this game. I think the teams are evenly matched. I look for a close game, over and under 65. Imagine that.
Yeah, that's high. Before we get away, our usual reminders of what's coming up. NFL Preview, the place to be tomorrow morning. A full hour of previews starting at 11 o'clock Eastern with Cellini, Lofton, and Meyer. As always, I'll be along during the course of the hour with the latest release of the USA Today CNN Coaches Poll. Then tomorrow night, you'll want to join Nick and Fred for the latest NBA news and action on This Week in the NBA at 11:30 Eastern, immediately following CNN Sports Tonight. And now for Danny Sheridan, I'm Bob Lorenz. Enjoy the day's games. We'll see you next week on College Football Preview.
Let's find out what kind of weather couch potatoes watching the game on the tube will be missing. Byron Moran.
I think I'm a couch potato too, yes. They're going to be watching some football with some nice weather across the southeast towards the southwest, all the way back from Texas up to the Great Basin. But there are some problems, I'm told, in Southern California. Make that San Diego, a lot of fog there, and apparently some cars have had some accidents there, so you want to be careful if you're in that area of the United States. A bit of rain to talk about in the Pacific Northwest, as well as parts of the Intermountain region, Montana down into Idaho, Boise, Idaho, Billings, Montana, you'll see a shower today. Seattle, Washington, Portland, Oregon, we'll see a shower today. Northern California, a little bit of rain there. However, should be dry from San Francisco all the way to Southern California, Los Angeles, a high of about 77. You see we have a little bit of snow in the Ohio Valley, maybe some snow flurries into parts of, let's call it Green Bay, Wisconsin, as well as Minneapolis, St. Paul. But the southeast is nice and dry. All the way down to Florida. The mid-Atlantic states are going to be nice today. In fact, it's going to be warm tomorrow, maybe 60s in the mid-Atlantic, as well as 70 degrees here in Atlanta, Georgia, Bob. I know you can't wait to see that temperature come by.
I'm going to hold you to that. Thanks, Byron.
Well,
just ahead on Newsday Saturday, the votes are being counted. Will Ireland decide to throw out a long-standing ban on divorce? We'll talk with an Irish expert coming up.
First look at the USA Today CNN's Top 25 College Coaches Poll. Turn to NFL Preview, Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern on CNN.